Welcome back to the Game Collection, and to my 50th review. You know, at this point, there's a rather conspicuous lack of game reviews for a certain series. And that ends today. I am SuperDerek, and this is Dragon Warrior.
Dragon Warrior, also known as Dragon Quest, is a series of games owned by NES. Dragon Quest I, developed by Chunsoft, was released 30 years ago in May of 1986, and is the prototypical Japanese RPG that laid the groundwork from which an entire genre derived. Since the game's release, the series has become a symbol of unchanging, unwavering, steadfast loyalty to the art of the turn-based battle. And as such, Dragon Quest gets both the first and final words on the subject of Japanese role-playing games. To some, Dragon Quest is a source of comfort. In a sea of uncertainty, Dragon Quest is an island where you can always take comfort in the fact that the more things change in the rest of the JRPG scene, the more Dragon Quest will stay the same. Dragon Quest was conceived by Yuji Horii in an attempt to combine elements of wizardry and Ultima. He wanted to introduce role-playing games to a Japanese audience, most of whom did not, and to this day do not, own and use personal computers. In order to reach them, he would have to make games for consoles, and decided upon the Famicom. Because of the limited power and user input capabilities of the Famicom, much of the game had to be streamlined to allow for ease of control, simplifying many game mechanics in the process. Long ago in the realm of Alefgard, balls of light were used by the hero Erdrick to seal away great evil. However, those balls of light were just stolen by the Dragon Lord, plunging the realm back into darkness. It was foretold that a descendant of Erdrick would take up the quest, recover the balls of light, and restore peace to the land once more. That's where you come in, and the story of Dragon Warrior begins. The story of Dragon Warrior is pretty light, consisting of plot devices which would become tropes of the genre for generations to come. Ancient evil, magic orbs holding back certain peril. There's even an optional portion of the game where you can save the princess. That's right, saving the princess is a side quest, and I'm not even sure if that's an original idea or not. But what's even more surprising is that technically, Dragon Warrior has multiple endings. There's the usual ending after defeating the boss, but you're also given the choice to join him instead, which results in a different series of events taking place, requiring you to restart the game. Sure, you don't see the credits or anything afterward, but I'll allow it. Digging into Dragon Warrior for the first time, I initially expected to be driven off by the hardest of hardcore grinding and encounter rates, complete with poor balance issues and a myriad of cryptic fetch quests. I was essentially expecting the worst, and I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't nearly as archaic as I thought it could have been. It was all of those things I was dreading, but not to such a degree. Encounter rates were sporadic, ranging from peaceful strolls across the continent to fighting hordes of monsters every step. Inconsistency was the only thing that I could really count on. The experience system is an odd one too. The experience curve is all over the place. Level 1 through 15 follow a normal exponential curve, typical for what you would expect from a run-of-the-mill RPG. Then, inexplicably, you start hitting plateaus where the next level takes the same increase of experience points as the last. Then, at the tail end, it spikes for one level, only to plummet back down for the final level of experience. It's not usually something that I talk about because I've never noticed this oddity with any game prior, except for maybe Highlight. Dragon Warrior received some enhancements when it was localized to the United States. Graphical improvements include animating sprites walking in different directions rather than all sprites facing forward at all times. In addition, we also don't have to deal with the clunky password system, and instead we're able to use a battery backup to save our games. In the Japanese version, that password would be given to you by the king. In the US version, that king is instead a save point. The save point, actually. So as you might expect, dying out on an extended adventure means losing a lot of progress. Luckily, you keep your experience points and any items when you die in-game, but you still lose half your gold. While playing Dragon Warrior, I really appreciated most of the enemy designs, which were conceptualized by Yuji Horii, but developed and refined upon by none other than Akira Toriyama a staple of the series. Most of his work was lost during the localization, scrapping his beautiful illustrations on the cover and manuals in favor of some generic knights and dragon illustrations. Many enemy designs, most notably the slime, have become video game icons and have recurred throughout the series. Musically though, Dragon Warrior doesn't have many tricks under its belt. It does set a few new trends, however, that stood the test of time, including the iconic herald announcing the start of every Dragon Quest game since. During the game, however, I can't say too many positive things about the music. It doesn't sound bad, but the repetitive rolling melody definitely made it tough to stay awake during some of the more grindy portions of the game. When Dragon Warrior was released in the West, many people were given free copies of Nintendo Power, and because of this, the market is absolutely flooded with copies of Dragon Warrior. Loose copies are cheap as dirt, and complete copies ought to be easily attained for less than $20.
This is a game that sparked a series that became a legend, celebrated around the world. Sure, the game has its faults, but it's got enough charm to keep you entertained for at least a few hours. And for the price, it's not a bad way to experience the history of the genre that we all know and love. And for that reason, Dragon Warrior absolutely has a spot in the game collection.
Ever want to know why I feel the way I do? Check out my playthrough by following the annotation in the lower right. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a patron for access to cut and behind-the-scenes content, status updates, and video commentaries just like these awesome people.